Welcome back, I said. He nodded and smiled. Our guy with the biggest issue, the armor, asked him what he did with the hill people. I returned them to their camp so they could be with their friends. The consideration will protect us so we can be at peace. Now we are brothers. This seemed to assuage our armorer's concerns. Maybe in his mind he pictured they all came to a peaceful understanding and shook hands and agreed that everything was going to be okay from now on. In my head, I pictured him dumping off a cart of bodies, taking the ones still alive and tying them to poles around the town, letting them wake up to see that all their friends were dead in front of them. It was literally a sacrifice. They were dying so we can live. Everyone seemed in pretty good spirits then, and I didn't see any issues in anyone's faces. So what now that we are brothers? I asked. That perked up the forest man. Oh, yes. Now you come inside, and we thank the frogs. They all looked at me like this was stupid. The forest man walked over to his door, opened it, and disappeared for a moment. We started to see little lights pop on in the house as he lit candles or lanterns. And then he popped his head out. Come in, it be getting cold. I hadn't realized it, but I was getting really cold. I think I'd put my hoodie up without even realizing it, which didn't really fit well over my booty hat. I told the girls to grab my shield, which the bolder one did. I had a feeling it was becoming her shield. We followed the forest man inside, our exo first, then me, then the girls followed, and the rest of the trailer in after. As we went in his home, the ambient sound of frogs quieted, but not by much. I realized that was because there was frogs inside the house also. They were in several large aquariums and seemed to be very happy. I could tell a few of the guys were still on edge a bit, nerves renewed due to the new situation, but I left it alone. It was good to follow your instincts, trust, and verify. The forest man told us to sit, and said we could get the fire going. He went off to go get something. Our XO checked the fire out in the fireplace. It didn't need much getting going again, and in a few moments the fire was going strong. I instantly started feeling warm again and felt like I could take my mechanic's gloves off, so I did and put them in my bag. I had set my bag down next to me so I could get things in and out as needed on the couch. I hated sitting down, but I knew it made everyone else extremely uncomfortable to stand around. It was hard for me to relax, though, and this was usually the only way I could see everyone. I knew from history, though, there was a few times I really should have sat down and didn't. And there was other times where I sat down and everyone wanted me to stand up. Turning my head around was the worst. It was so much easier to just stand so I could move my whole body. I guess that was why. Around then, the forest man came out and had a box. I went to go give it to the girls. Here you go, have fun. It was all I could do to imagine them opening a box to a bunch of frickin' frogs jumping out, which they of course would want to play with. I love frogs, don't get me wrong, but I don't know what it is with trying to get kids to stop playing with them once they get started. There weren't frogs in the box, though. It was a big box of toys. What a relief. They each found toys to play with, and that was that. He came down to sit with us after getting them occupied. Those squirrels aren't yours. Where did you get them? We all looked to our XO, and he responded for all of us. We ran into slave traders 2 towns back. The girls ran to our van as we were trying to get away. When the trade auction thing got ambushed, our analyst here is the one that saw them. Then he pointed to me, and I nodded grimly. We all looked grim. The girls happily played with the toys in the background in the candlelight to the sound of frogs and fire crackling. Our XO continued. Those people that we ran into in the field were part of the trade auction thing also. Another group was missing, probably in league with the Red Scarf folks. Huge ambush, smash and grab. We barely got out. Those people down in the last town chasing us thought it was us that set them up, but we'd never seen any of those people before. Now here we are. Yeah, now here you are, the forest man replied. His last word trailed with nothing more needed to be said. Now, how about some grub? We all looked at him and each other, wondering if grub meant actual grubs. I decided to jump at the opportunity. Grubs sound great. My friends and I all looked at me like I was being a moron, which I was. The forest man looked at me and said, "Don't be gross. It'd be a figure of speech." He was smiling, though, and I couldn't tell if he saw it was a joke or not. Our XO said, "That sounds really good. We would much appreciate it. Wouldn't mind contributing somehow if we could. Sure, could always use more firewood brought in. It's getting cold and the night's long." A few of us went out to the woodpile to go get wood. It looked like a dwindling stack to the left of the living room stove. Probably only enough for a few hours at best. The forest man walked over to go to the kitchen and motioned me to follow. I followed him to the kitchen, and he walked me to a case of water. Told me to bring it back for everyone, so I did. "Hey everyone, here's a case of water he wanted to share with us." I set it on the coffee table and opened it with my knife and took one for myself. Everyone inside was sitting down, so I just handed them each one if they looked like they wanted one. Then I took a bottle for myself and drank from it. It seemed to taste fine. I went back in the kitchen to see what else there was to do. He was trying to get a second oven going that looked like a cast iron cooking stove. I saw that the woodpile was also small, so I put on my Kevlar gloves that were in my bag and brought some wood back in from the other room. I saw a hatchet and split the wood into tiny pieces on some stone that he had laid in there. I know I put my gloves on for this stuff. I hated getting splinters. I made a stack, a quarter-sized kindling for him so he could more easily get the stove started. "You done this before?" he inquired. "Yeah, when I was a kid." He nodded in approval and checked the oven portion to make sure nothing was stored in there. Nothing was, so he closed it. The tiny fire with the newspaper and a few tiny pieces of kindling was getting started. Then he put his hand out. I handed him a few pieces so he could set them on top of the miniature fire that he started. Right about then, I heard the front door open in the other room. It was our friends coming back with a wheelbarrow of wood. The other guys got up and helped them bring the wood in. I repositioned myself to look back into the kitchen to notice the forest man was missing. I looked around more and noticed a door partially open. I guess he went through there, I thought to myself. I knew better than to follow, though, because I wasn't invited. I heard someone coming up from the stairs and figured out he must have a basement. I scooted over to get the door for him, and he came up with several pizzas and beer. I didn't drink, but I knew everyone else liked to enjoy a beer or two. The fire had gotten going pretty good, and I put a few more sticks in there. It was almost time for a medium-sized piece. I rotated the medium piece until it would fit and got it in there. Then I closed the hatch partially. The fire would still need oxygen. The side vent was open to let oxygen in, but it was better to make sure that you didn't choke it out. He looked, nodded in approval, and went to take beers into the other room. I picked up my water that I guess I'd set down and followed him in. "My brothers, I bring you cold ones so we can celebrate our victory." He set down several types of beer on the coffee table. They all sifted through, somehow understanding what all the gibberish on the cans meant. Dark this and draught that, blah blah blah, who cares? They all fiddle-farted over their stupid flavors, and eventually all settled on what they wanted first. They all knew better than to offer me one as I sipped on my water. Our forest friend spoke up. "Young brothers. Young brother, you not want beverage?" "I appreciate it, but I'll pass. Got my water," I responded, then held my water bottle up. "To our brothers, the ones who are here and the ones who aren't." I bonked my water bottle on everyone else's scanner bottle, and they all did likewise. Forest man went back into the kitchen. I figured by now the oven was ready, and he probably figured the same. I followed him back in the kitchen as the guys started to sip their crafted brews. I didn't want to silently stalk him around, and I had plenty of questions as he put his first pizza in the oven. I noticed the pizza was on a stone. I couldn't help but notice some of those villagers were conveniently falling down by themselves during the attack. I intentionally trailed off and let him piece together what I was wondering. I didn't want to pry too hard. I didn't want it to be like it was an audit. I did not do that. It was defrogs. I have defrog power. "I see. You're some kind of frog shaman?" He glanced at me for a second as if considering terminology, then approval washed over his face. "A frog shaman, that be a good way to put it." He thought for a second as if considering whether or not to tell me the whole story. "These frogs, they be toxic now, not like before. Something changed them into water."